not go through those injuries because I was already prepared for them. When I got there, the experience didn't match the prior to me getting there. They support, I think, women's soccer more than women's sports get supported anywhere worldwide. All the years of not getting treatment for those things, a lot of things have built up. Eating healthier, that's kind of how I was raised. Hi.
Hi, welcome to the SPRTER Podcast. Let me introduce you to our audience.
Awesome.
I am super excited to welcome our guest today, Summer Mason, who's a professional soccer player, currently playing for the FC Levante Las Planas in Spain. She began her soccer career at Carlsbad High School, was named the CIF All-League Second Team Offensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, and helped the team to many championships. Before going pro, she attended Seattle University for 1 year and transferred to the University of San Diego, where she finished her career, playing a major part in the team's offense. Started in 56 games, scored 22 goals and 12 assists, and she made her leap to the pros, signing for Xolos, hope I pronounced that correct, in Mexico. And after a stint over there, she now transferred to FC Levante Las Planas in Spain. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Before we delve into it, I also want to make sure our audience and your audience understands and knows about your experience. So that's set up in the SPRTER app, where Summer offers awesome experiences, from signed pictures to Zoom calls and nutrition advice. So head over to the SPRTER app and check out her experience store. But let's delve into it. How did it all start? How did you decide to, hey, I really have a passion for soccer and I could really make that my living?
I started playing when I was 5. My parents tried to find a extracurricular activity for me, and we tried a few that didn't work, threw me into soccer, and it was immediate. It was just, this was what I was put here to do, basically. And then after my first season when I was 6, from that point on, I said I wanted to play professional soccer, and I did everything I could to get there.
Wow, that's very early to commit to professional soccer and actually getting there, because a lot of kids are like, yeah, I want to play pro. I was like, actually, yeah, you made it. So you're one of the 0.001% who get there. How did that drive that, hey, I'm committing, and how did that transfer into, hey, I'm really good at high school, and how did it impact your decision to go to college and where you went to college, as well as transferring within college?
So, I mean, my whole soccer journey has been a lot of ups and a lot of really low downs. I changed a lot of clubs growing up because I was always a player that I wanted to understand why a coach wanted me to do something, not just have them tell me something and do that. And I think a lot of coaches took that as me questioning them. So growing up, I butted heads with a lot of coaches because they didn't want a kid asking them. So I had a lot of changes, and then high school, especially my senior year, was unbelievable for me. I got the high school record there for goals and assists, and I ran track, and it was fantastic. And then the funny thing is my goal was to play professionally, so college was never something that was on my mind growing up. And then probably when I was getting towards the end of middle school, about 8th grade, that's when we started to look into that and do the whole recruitment process. So sending out emails, videos, all that stuff. And the toughest thing for me with picking a college was a lot of the top colleges for soccer are really big schools. And the one thing I wanted, if I was going to get an education out of it, was a smaller school, because I know my mind wanders instantly. The ADHD kicks in and my mind's gone. So I feel like I wanted this small environment to really get an education out of it and get something more than just the soccer. So that's when I chose to go to Seattle University. And the recruitment process with them was great. The coaches were, especially the assistant coach, we created good relationship, checking in all the time. But when I got there, the experience didn't match the prior to me getting there. Right from the start, I was starting games, I was playing a majority, and then for some reason about halfway into season, it all stopped. They told me I had scored goals as a freshman, and they told me I needed to get more assists. And yeah, uh, that's everyone's response when I tell them that. So I just think there was something else there that they didn't want to talk to me about. So as the season kind of went on, with me getting less time, not starting anymore, I decided that this just wasn't good for me soccer-wise to stay. And that's when I decided to transfer to USD and go back home.
Okay. So you did end up at a big school in the end.
Well, it's not a big. USD is pretty small. It's private, so it's smaller. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the questioning part probably led to you actually also getting a coaching license and in like, hey, I want to know what is going on. Don't just tell me, explain. And I think that's, as you said, some coaches can see that as a, well, follow what I do and don't question it. But I think that's where the most curious people are the ones that understand it best in the end. And that's probably very helpful for any sort of tactics that you are now playing, as well as in understanding the game, the positioning, etc. Do you feel like that has helped you, as well as your coaching license that you got? Has that helped you in just playing as well, not just the coaching part?
I feel like it really has. I feel I really got into coaching. What was it? Well, I mean, I've been doing soccer, like private soccer lessons since I was in college. I love coaching soccer. I'm not the biggest soccer watcher. I don't really like watching games and stuff. I want to be more involved. So I really found my passion in coaching, and I've always wanted to coach because of the experiences I had where I didn't really get what I wanted out of a coach. And I want to be the opposite of that for these, kids, whether it's girls or boys. It's mainly been girls that I've worked with. Privates, I was coaching a club team for a couple months, 2 teams actually. And then I spontaneously got signed with Cholos, and I had to give them up. And then just recently I was coaching a high school girls JV team, and it's great. And I feel like seeing how they do things and correcting it has helped me to when I do something wrong, like when I'm training by myself or with the team and I take a bad shot or I do something, I'm like, okay, it's because this was wrong and this was wrong. And then I can go in and fix it mentally, and I feel like then the next time I do it, it's a little bit better.
That's interesting. And I think that makes a lot of sense from, hey, I'm a coach, I explain you, oh, hold on, here's what I'm doing wrong myself.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Now, you then joined and played professionally in Mexico. Can you talk us through that experience?
Yeah. It was a different experience for me. So when I graduated from college back in 2019, that summer I played in Finland for a couple months with a pro team there. And that was me, I moved to Finland for that time, just like here in Spain, and I was fully just playing soccer, and that was it. But with Cholos, I still lived in California, and I would commute every day for training, and we trained early, so it was an early morning. And I was still coaching the teams for a little bit, and then I was doing soccer privates and all those things. So the focus wasn't all on playing soccer. And so I feel like definitely as the season carried on, I started to get more tired physically and mentally. And that's when I had to cut back on all the coaching because it was just too much. But I think the most amazing thing that comes out of the Mexican League that you don't really get anywhere else unless you've been there for a long time is the fan support. They love soccer there. I mean, the people love soccer worldwide, but Mexico, they support, I think, women's soccer more than women's sports get supported anywhere worldwide. And yeah, it's great because even when I left, I still had a lot of people that reached out and were like, "We miss you here, but we're happy that you're playing elsewhere," and things like that.
That's an interesting observation in terms of the fan support between what you see. Obviously, college is different, but then pro in Mexico and even now in Spain, because Spain has a strong soccer culture. What made you decide? We know you had some offers from other teams in Mexico, potentially stay there. What made you decide to join oh, I'm drawing a blank here. No, Levante Las Planas. I always want to say Las Planas. Okay, Levante Las Planas, because there are two clubs. There's a Levante, FC Levante, and there's a Levante Las Planas, right?
Yeah.
Got me confused. So FC Levante Las Planas, what made you decide to join them?
Well, so when I finished with Cholos, I ended the season with them a little bit early because we had some issues that I won't get into. But I tried to resolve them with the director and everybody, but it just didn't work out. So my goal was to try to get into the NWSL this year. So I had other teams in Mexico make offers and things, but I told the timeline that they needed a response, I wouldn't have known from the NWSL. So, and at the time, I really wasn't ready to move to Mexico. I was working and I was doing all these things, and I have my husband and our dogs, and I was like, now is not a great time. I need a little more planning. But I was hoping for the NWSL to work out, and it didn't in the end, which is totally fine. And within a week or two, this opportunity came up, and I hadn't been signed with an agent since Finland. And basically an agent brought this to me, and that's how we created a relationship, and now I'm out here.
All right. Now, you've been in Spain for how long now?
I think we're about 3 weeks, maybe up on a month. No, I think we're coming up on 3 weeks. It feels way longer than it is.
And how's that adjusting to the new team and to the city, to the new team? How's that going? And what are because you've traveled and transferred multiple teams, so what are some tips that you have, and what do you do yourself to, quote unquote, whether it's blend in or fit in with the new team?
I think the biggest thing for me is just like with the like butting heads with coaches, I typically don't have issues with players. I just kind of show up. I want to work hard, and for me, like, I feel like some people go into soccer teams and they want to make a bunch of friends and want to hang out, and I don't know, that hasn't really been that for me. I feel like I'm too, like, I show up, I want to work, and then I like cut out. And sometimes I think people take that the wrong way. But so far with this team, it's been really great. They've invited me to some like small get-togethers and things like that. But even the coaching staff is very welcoming, and this is the first team since college that has had like a real physio staff and like setup to take care of us. And I think that's huge for me because I just typically when I'm training and stuff, and even out when I do training on my own, there's just a lot of running. and all the years of not getting treatment for those things, a lot of things have built up. So it's really nice to have that here. But the biggest thing for me is I've always been myself, like who I am, and unapologetically myself. And I guess for me, I'm totally fine being alone. So for me, if people like it, great. And if people don't, that's fine too. And, you know, as long as I'm showing up, I feel good, I work hard, that's, you know, that's what it is to me, is just about the soccer.
That sounds like a very healthy approach to, well, life in general, as in being happy with yourself. That's a very comfortable space to be in, but then also being able to fit with others. Or I was like, well, if you don't, if you like, you don't. It's like, okay, I'm happy either way. So that sounds like a really healthy approach. I think a lot of professional athletes could really benefit from that approach to life. You mentioned before you have a husband and dogs. One, two, three, many? And they're still in the United States, or did they move with you to Spain? And how's that working out?
So they're still in the United States because this was only about a 3-month contract because it's the very end of the season. So he could have come out, but trying to get the dogs out too in such short note, because it was like 2 weeks or less the time frame. So, you know, he decided to stay back, continue working. And then if I do sign another contract out here, then for the full season, then we would move everybody out here.
That makes sense. Moving animals is so difficult abroad, and
especially to Europe.
Yeah, or vice versa, from Europe to the United States.
Yeah.
Same as well. Yeah, good luck with that. You mentioned also, it's like we know you're a fitness model, fitness instructor. You share a lot of nutritional advice, which some of the recipes you share on Instagram look absolutely yummy. So definitely have to recreate some of those. But fitness is obviously really important to you. How does that impact your game? How does that impact your style? How do you train while you're in season versus if you're not in season, and how does that impact your game of soccer?
I think it's had a huge impact on my soccer. I grew up, my mom's been a fitness instructor her entire life, basically. So 2 weeks old, was in the daycare, the gym. Growing up, I was playing in the gym. I spent all my days there. So that aspect and like the eating healthier, that's kind of how I was raised. And I think that's given me a huge advantage in that aspect, especially with preventing. I mean, I've had a million injuries, but nothing, not really many that weren't from contact or anything like that. So a lot of female soccer players, they get their ACL tears and things like that. And basically when I turned 12, your body starts changing, you're going through puberty. My mom's like, all right, we're going to the gym and we're lifting, and that's, I mean, I love it, but that was a huge asset to have, to not go through those injuries, because I was already prepared for them. And I think now going into, you know, being by myself, being an adult, playing professionally, I think all of that growing up made me really in tune with my body. So I know like how much to train and when to hold back, when I should have a day where I run or maybe just do some mobility, if like what kind of foods I need to eat, things like that. And I think it's helped a lot, because since I got here, I haven't been able to play in a game yet, because I was still waiting on paperwork, which just went through, I think it was yesterday. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So hopefully this weekend I can get on the field. But for me, the last couple of weeks were kind of like preseason more than season. So when we had a day off, I would just train on my own, because I didn't play in a game, so I didn't feel like I needed that time. And, you know, as much as a day off is nice because it's soccer every day, you know, when they're playing in a game and I'm sitting and watching, well, I need to be putting out the same amount of energy. That way we're kind of on the same page in a sense.
And being able to having that background is obviously giving you the advantage and the knowledge how to do that properly. So that is huge. That makes it. I can absolutely see that. Now for the 3 weeks of being there, training as well as seeing some games, I would assume you've been on the stands and have been watching the rest of the team play. Do you see any differences between the league in Mexico and between the Spanish league yet?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I didn't really watch many of the Mexican games. I was playing in them, but still like training and seeing it and things like that. What I've noticed the difference, I've always noticed Europe has a lot more technical players. There's technical players all around, but I would say Europe tends to produce players that are very, very skilled on the ball, good in close spaces, things like that. The US to me puts like all emphasis on fitness. So running a bunch, being in crazy shape and things like that. And then the soccer comes like just below that. And I feel like Mexico is kind of in between the two. But the biggest thing I noticed was I think the buildup of play is much better here. A lot of like finding 1-2s and through balls and things like that. But in Mexico, they are much better, at least the teams I've seen are much better at finding the goal, looking for it
Mm.
and finding it. I think here, I've seen it not just from our team, but the teams we played against. There's the buildup, and then like you get to the final third, and it's like no one seems like they really want to just put the ball in the back of the net. And I think in Mexico, you see more of that than like nice buildup. It's more like get it down there and score. And I like both sides of it. I mean, for me, I'm a go, run down the field and go. But it's pretty soccer watching the passing and the way that they move here. It's really
So
nice.
it's sometimes the dying in grace part, as in rather than all right, let's get a dirty goal and win this game.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll haven't listened to your coach from Seattle too much and are able to find the net.
Yeah, I hope so. I know I haven't since Finland. I haven't really played forward at all. Which I mean, the toughest thing for me is I understand why they like to play me outside and in the wing. Because you see a fast player that can run a lot, and you're like, I'll put them on the sides because they can run and get crosses in and defend. But for me, like I've always played forward so
Mm.
much, and I excelled there because once the ball goes over the defense, I'm gone. And now I don't have to catch up and run past like 10 people. It's just two players. So I see both sides of it. And I've talked to the coaches with this team, so I'm hoping I can get a little bit of time at least in both positions. Because I definitely miss playing forward. It's fun.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully there will be some opportunities there. And we have a segment that we call Break the Rules, where we ask you to make a rule change to soccer that would make the sport better, whatever better means to you.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Mm, wow. Okay. Um, man, that's I think I think making offsides more clear. I think the problem is like I've definitely scored goals and people have seen videos and they're like that shouldn't be a goal because there was only like a goalkeeper behind you when the ball went through and there's supposed to be a defender and a goalkeeper or something like that. I think making the offsides rule just like very clear and concise. Like if the defender, to me, I think even if you're already offsides, like you're recovering, but the defender hits a bad ball and it goes to you, I think you should be able to go. Because from what I've heard, if you're already
Mm.
offsides and the defender hits it, then you're offsides. But if you were, I don't know. See, that's what I mean. It's confusing.
I know what you mean, as in it should be a new situation where sometimes the time when a new situation is defined is a little bit gray, is a little bit of a gray zone. So I fully agree with you on that one. And I think the handball rules are changing a lot
Yeah.
lately as well. So more clarity is usually beneficial.
Oh, yeah. And I think, and for a rule that came up with like in the last few years that I think is dumb for kids is the no heading rule
Mm.
until you're 12, I think. Because the team I was coaching in high school, I was noticing that they did everything in their power other than the center backs to not head the ball. They would chest the ball, they would kind of like move. And even when the center backs headed it, they were just kind of like letting the ball like hit off their head.
Mm.
And so one of the games I asked the players on the bench, I was like, are you guys part of the generation where it started where you can't head the ball to a 12? And they said, yeah. And so from that point on, every practice we would work on headers, and they got exceedingly better in a very short amount of time because they just learned how to head the ball to, like, you know, tense in your neck, put power through it and things like that. And I think they created the rule because they thought it would help with concussions. I mean, I've had a lot of concussions, and none of it is from heading the ball. It's from being headed or a ball to my head or something like that. But I think the rule is just putting kids in this place where they're just going to be hurt when they get older because they're not developing those muscles when the ball is smaller and lighter and someone's not challenging them and they're not coming from as high and things like that. And then they're getting older and now it's a size 5 ball being, you know, hit straight at their head and they don't know what to do and they're going to hurt each other. So I think that's a rule I would get rid of for sure for kids.
That's an interesting aspect that you mentioned here, as in, yeah, nothing until you're 12, and then suddenly, like, yeah, competition, head the
Yeah.
ball, and I'm like, I don't know how to, and I think a lot of injuries will come from that, from people not understanding the timing, and as you mentioned, it's not even the heading the ball, but it's heading the next person who's also missing the ball.
Yeah.
So I could see that.
Yeah, and coaches, I mean, growing up, like I had coaches that would work on that in practice, but in, you know, now because they're not allowed to head in the game, they just don't work on it in practice either. So they're just not getting any training with it.
Mm. Yeah, it's that's an interesting part because essentially we think for kids coaching, you shouldn't, it should be about developing rather than winning the game on Sunday. I mean, at least most kids games, I would assume, unless you are, I don't know, the FC Barcelona under 12, right? I mean, that's where it's like, okay, I understand why you want to win against the Real Madrid's under 12, but it's like, really, is it that important?
Yeah.
That's an interesting part, and I think that's where the coach in you speaks as well.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, Now, I want to be cognizant of your time. I really appreciate you joining, but I won't let you go before we hear two things. One is, what are the big plans for the rest of 2023 in your professional career?
Ooh, I don't really have an answer for that. I think it all depends on the rest of this season. So once that, now that I can get on the field, and I mean, the biggest thing for me coming out here wasn't necessarily to play for this team and hope that they re-sign me. It was to play for this team and get exposure to the other teams here and hope that, someone can sign me for an amount that justifies moving everybody out here for a full season. So I would say that's kind of what it depends on. So the rest of till basically June playing here, going back home, and then if this team or another team makes an offer that allows us to move out there, then I'll probably be back out here. If there's another country, I don't know. But I mean, I took a break after Finland when COVID started. Didn't play soccer for 2 years, and decided to come back, and within a few months that's when Cholos happened. So at this point I'd like to continue and see where it takes me. Spend a full year somewhere would be awesome. So yeah, those are my plans, my tentative plans.
They sound like good plans. In the meantime, I definitely enjoy some of what Spain has to offer. You're definitely in a good location there. The second aspect I always like to ask is, what recommendation do you have for the next generation of female soccer players?
There's so many things. The biggest thing for me, basically almost every coach I worked with growing up, told me I would never play pro. I never played D1 soccer. I was too small. I know. But
that's a horrible thing to say to kids.
I know. That was basically my whole journey. And I would say really through my whole journey, I haven't really had a coach that, actually helped me get further, and kind of like vouch for me and, have connections for me. Or if they do have connections, it hasn't, been in my favor, I guess. So I think the biggest thing that I learned young, that helped me was, I tell people, be confident in yourself and your abilities, not based on how you play. So many kids, they're like, oh, I'm starting, I'm getting minutes, I'm playing well, like, yeah, I'm confident. And the minute that they don't start, or they get subbed out earlier than they thought, or they have a bad game and their confidence just tanks. And I think, and that's why I say, don't have performance-based confidence. Have confidence in, I had a bad game, but that's not who I am. I'm going to do better next time. And I think that confidence in what you have will help make decisions for, okay, this coach doesn't believe in me. I'll go find a coach that does. And that was my journey through it, was, okay, this person's not the only thing I'm here for is to play soccer. And if they're not gonna support me in doing that, then I'm confident myself enough to go look elsewhere for that. There's a million things, nutrition's important, preventative exercises when you're young to, build strength where you have muscle imbalance is important, but that mental side of it, that confidence side of it that's actually going to get you where you want to go. So, yeah.
That is an awesome advice. Really appreciate your time with us today. For all of our audience, all of our followers, make sure to follow along on all of the socials. We'll link you out, as well as head over to Summer's experience store on the SPRTER app to connect with her, book some awesome experiences, and get some more personalized insights as well. Thank you so much for joining the SPRTER podcast, and all the best with the season, as well as personally, professionally, happiness.
Thank you. It was so much fun being on here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.